Now we're going to go over the steps we're going to follow to graph a quadratic function. And then we'll do an example. We are most interested in this form, the f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c form that unfortunately our textbook does not call the standard form. Personally, I think of this as the standard form, but our textbook does not. And we're always going to be able to apply these 5 steps, which I believe you should be familiar with. This should be something you've covered before taking pre-calculus. But let's just go through these steps. We're always going to plot the vertex first, and you do need to know how to find the vertex from this ax squared plus bx plus c form. And you can just use a formula that we just derived in the previous video. The x-coordinate of the vertex is given by negative b over 2a. Very handy-dandy little formula to know. And by the way, how do you get the y-coordinate? Because back when we did that, answered that question, we didn't fully answer the question in the previous video because I said, how can we find the coordinates of the vertex? And I ended with the statement, well, the x-coordinate of the vertex is negative b over 2a. So then the question is, how do you get the y-coordinate of the vertex? And what you should do is just plug into the function expression. Don't memorize a formula for the y-coordinate of the vertex. That's a waste of time. Just find the x-coordinate using negative b over 2a. Then plug the x value you found into the expression for the function to get the corresponding y-coordinate. That's step 1. Step 2, you need to think about whether the shape of the graph is going to be U-shaped or an overturned U. This is determined by the sign of the A coefficient. In fact, this is totally all about end behavior, and we talked about end behavior with general polynomial functions. And it's really the A is just the lead coefficient, and so if A is positive, we know the shape matches the shape of the y equals x squared graph. If A is negative, that corresponds to a reflection having been made through the x-axis that flips that U shape over, and that's why we get the downward pointing shape. Step 3, set x equal to 0 to get the y-intercept. That's one of the easiest things you can do in the world, usually. Step 4, solve f of x equals 0 to get the x-intercepts, if any. This could be easy, could be complicated. In a previous example, we got pretty messy x-intercepts from a quadratic formula. And it's also possible that you have no x-intercepts at all. It's possible for the parabola to not even touch the x-axis, so you have to be aware of that. And then step 5, if necessary, plot a few more points, use symmetry to help. And I did talk in that earlier example just a bit about how you can use the symmetry of the parabola to get some bonus points sometimes. So these steps are important, and let's go ahead and apply them to an exercise. And we're going to do a graph here. All right, so let's go ahead and graph this quadratic function, f of x equals minus x squared minus 2x plus 8. And we're going to go through the 5 steps. So step 1 is find the vertex. So notice here a is equal to negative 1, b is negative 2, c is 8, right? That minus sign in front of the x squared is telling us that that a coefficient is negative 1. The x-coordinate of the vertex is given by negative b over 2a. That's our formula for the x-coordinate of the vertex. That's negative a negative 2 over 2 times a negative 1. Got a lot of minus signs here. It looks like I got 2 over negative 2 or negative 1. So the x-coordinate of the vertex here is -1. To get the y-coordinate, I'm just going to plug in -1 into our function expression. So that's negative a -1 squared minus 2 times -1 plus 8. So that's minus plus 1 plus 2 plus 8, or -1 plus 2 plus 8 is going to be 9. So -1, 9 is the vertex. That's the most important point on our parabola. Step 2 is take a look at A. A is equal to -1, which is less than 0. So the shape of our graph is that overturned U kind of shape, right? So we want to know that going into things. The vertex is going to be at the very top. And I think step 3 is the y-intercept. We're just going to plug in 0 for x. And it should be pretty easy for you to do that and see that we get 8. So 0, 8 is our y-intercept. X-intercepts, we set f of x equal to 0. So this can be messy and it might not be messy. So let's go ahead and see. We're going to set 0 equal to minus x squared minus 2x plus 8. Now because I'm solving an equation here and I have one side equal to 0, it's okay to multiply both sides by -1. And I get 0 equals positive x squared plus 2x minus 8 there. And I'm going to try to factor x and x. Signs got to be different if I'm going to get a negative third term. Could be an 8 and a 1 or a 4 and a 2. I may have to play around with it a little bit. -2 plus 4 is going to give me 4x minus 2x is 2x middle term. So I'm going to write off to the side here a little bit. So we have x minus 2 is 0 or x plus 4 is 0. X is equal to 2 or -4. So we have 2, 0, -4, 0 are my x-intercepts. So I got, let's see, I got a vertex, a y-intercept, and some x-intercepts to plot. Let's set up a graph grid here. I'm going to use a sheet of graph paper. And let's see, I'm just going to use I think I'm going to make each square worth just 1 for this graph. I think it works out just fine to do that. So this is 1, 2, 1, 2, just to indicate the scale. Okay, vertex is -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up here. Okay. And I know I'm going to be an overturned U shape, right? My y-intercept is 0, 8, so very, very close to that. And my x-intercepts are 2, 0, and -4, 0. And really, I think that's about all I need to draw this graph. Okay. That's the bare minimum that I would want to see. It's nice if you label these intercept points with their coordinates. And the only other thing I might add here is, this idea of symmetry I think is really helpful to think about. The x-intercepts are symmetric about what we would call the line of symmetry for this parabola. And up here near the top, this y-intercept, it's 1 unit away from that vertical line of symmetry. So if I go 1 unit in the opposite direction, this point, which would be -2, 8, must be on the parabola. And all the parabola points come in pairs like that, of course, except the vertex. All right, so we got a graph of, let me just recopy the equation here. F of x equals minus x squared minus 2x plus 8. So a nice straightforward kind of example. And next we're going to start working on the applications problems.